I have been working at this company for 10 years. My boss has always regarded me as a diligent and loyal employee, so granting me this special permission is not a big deal for him. However, the problem lies at home. My wife, 34-year-old Elle, was very unhappy when she found out that I have to take my father for dialysis twice a week. She didn't like it when I occasionally took him, but she never directly expressed her dissatisfaction. Now that I have seriously taken on this responsibility, she can't control herself. She said it's pointless for me to waste time on my father because no matter what I do, he will never be impressed with me. There is a background story here. My father owns a merchandise wholesale business, and he is quite wealthy, having accumulated a considerable fortune. He wanted me to take over his business, but I am passionate about other things. I wanted to enter the tech industry. I am passionate about coding and creating software. So, after graduating from school, when my father wanted me to study some business or management courses, I chose a software degree. He was fine with it until I was willing to join his company. However, after I graduated, I started working for a well-known tech company, and what upset my father was that instead of continuing his business, I was working for someone else. He kept asking me to join his business, and I kept delaying. After my marriage, my father asked me for the last time if I wanted to join, and I said no. My father was very angry, saying he would donate all his property to charity, and I would not get a penny. I still didn't change my decision. You see, even at that age, I was earning well. At 29, I bought my own car and house. I was confident that I could live a decent life without his wealth. I told him I didn't need his money and could create wealth on my own. Since then, our relationship has been bad. 5 years ago, my mother passed away from a sudden cardiac arrest, which was devastating for my father. You see, I left home at the age of 17 to go to college, then found a job and started living on my own. My father's only companion was my mother, and losing her was the most devastating thing for him. It was then that our relationship was revitalized. I started visiting him often and frequently brought my children to play with him. Eventually, he stepped down from his company and handed it over to a trust to operate. My wife Elle was never close to my parents until my mother was still here. Elle used to avoid visiting my parents, saying that her mother was too curious about our lives, and they didn't get along well. When my father announced that he would remove me from his will, Elle began to openly criticize my parents, saying they were stingy and evil. I insisted on keeping her away from my relationship with my parents, but she always intervened, saying it would affect our future, especially our children's. I assured her that our and our children's future was secure regardless of my father's wealth, but she was unwilling to understand this. Now, talking about the current situation, Elle was furious when I found out that I had to accompany my father for dialysis twice a week. At first, I tried to make her understand that my father only had me, and he had lost his parents a long time ago. Although he had a brother, he lived on the other side of the city and rarely visited my father. My father became very lonely after my mother's death, and I couldn't abandon him in this situation, but my wife refused to understand this. Recently, she has made my life miserable. Every Saturday, she comes up with some plans, either hosting a party at home, deep cleaning the house, going out with the children, or something as trivial as grocery shopping. I made it clear to her that she could plan whatever she wanted on Sundays because I have to take my father for dialysis on Saturdays, but she continues to make plans and then blames me for being late or missing out. I have to rush to pick up my father, then take him to the dialysis center, and after that, take him home and face her sarcasm and temper. It's not just on Saturdays, she does the same on Wednesday evenings. I promised my boss that I would make up for the remaining work in the evening or after dialysis in the evening, but she almost always has plans every Wednesday evening, either going out to see her family, meeting friends she hasn't seen in a long time, or attending some random party, leaving the responsibility of taking care of the children to me. I have to take care of the unfinished tasks at work after a busy workday in the dialysis center, while also cooking and feeding the children, all while completing my tasks. I know this is long, but this is my miserable situation. Many times, my father suggested that I let him go to the center with the nurse because he saw that I was always in a hurry, nervously looking at my watch, and after taking him home, I wouldn't wait a second before rushing back, and even when picking him up, I asked him to be ready and come out before I arrived. My father has a full-time nurse and a caregiver, AK, to take care of him, but I still feel sad for not spending time with him. The drive from his house to the center is 30 minutes, and I used to enjoy chatting with him and talking about the good old days with the children while driving, but with Elle's temper increasing, all I care about is getting home as quickly as possible. Most of the time, I just speed in traffic, take shortcuts, overtake other vehicles, to reduce driving time. This is the only time I can be with my father, and I don't want to ruin it or stop it by asking him to go with the nurse. I also have the responsibility as a son, and I just can't stand this woman anymore. Update 1: The situation is getting worse every day, and my wife has left no chance to persuade me not to take care of my father. Her point is that it's a losing deal, and my father has already removed me from his will and donated his property to charity, so it's meaningless to waste time and energy on him. I can't understand her. Do we do everything just for profit and loss? If someone's parents have no wealth or are very poor, would their children abandon them because they have nothing to offer? After listening to her temper for a few months, I finally told her that she won't inherit anything from her parents, so why does she still visit them from time to time? Oh, my God, she lost her mind, saying that my parents have done more than your greedy father, they support me in everything, and they are not like your father who abandoned you because you didn't join his business. My father would never do that to me, so don't dare compare my parents to yours. It's not just once, this kind of argument is becoming a norm in my family, almost every Wednesday and Saturday, after I come back from dialysis, it's getting worse and uglier. She used to only argue with me, but now I see her yelling at me in front of the children. Not only that, but I also hear her speaking ill of my father in front of the children, manipulating them against me and my father. I heard it and intervened, which led to another ugly fight between us. Elle's fighting has become my daily life, and on the days when she doesn't fight, I feel like something is missing, and she becomes more aggressive the next day. I have almost given up on her, and now I don't yell at her or answer her, I just ignore her as if she doesn't exist to me. What else can I do? I can't abandon my father to please her. I don't care if he has removed me from his will, he did it because of my own decision. I refused to join his company, and he was forced to give his hard-earned business to the trust, which must have been very frustrating for him. The company was a child to my father, and he had to donate it to someone else. He had every right to abandon me because I hurt him. Sometimes I feel that karma is coming back because I hurt my father in my life. On the other hand, my father is becoming weaker and weaker, and he can hardly walk on his own. He needs support to help him to the car to save time. I used to ask him to come out and put him outside the house, but now I don't care about being late. I go in and carefully help him to the car, then take him to his bed until he is comfortably settled. He also has shortness of breath, so I make sure to walk as slowly as possible, and also be careful while driving to avoid speeding and increasing heart rate. I don't care about coming home late, because rushing home is not helpful. If I have to deal with that evil woman anyway, why not at least make my father happy? My careless attitude has worsened the situation, and yesterday Elle said I need to choose between them, either my father or her. I tried to make her understand that my father won't be with us forever, considering his condition, he doesn't seem to live long. She coldly replied that in this case, you need to make a careful choice, someone who will always be with you, or someone who will die soon. It's so callous. I told her, you know what, I'd better choose my father, rather than choose you who are so evil and selfish to a dying person. She packed her bags and left, and I didn't even stop her. She needs some time to calm down, and I need some space from her. In her absence, I am taking care of the house, the children, my father, and my work, but I feel so relieved, so relaxed. Her absence actually makes me feel relieved. The day before yesterday, she sent me divorce papers. I anticipated it somewhere, but I didn't expect it to come so fast. I was shocked, but deep down, I felt happy and relieved. I didn't call her, just signed the papers and sent them back. Surprisingly, she didn't ask for custody of the children. That was the only clause I was worried about. But when she received the papers, she called back and yelled at me for signing without calling her and begging her. Funny, right? Her mother grabbed the phone and yelled that I should act like a man and try to appease his wife back into the marriage, instead of just signing. It's funny, she wanted a divorce, and I agreed. I'm glad to get rid of her without trouble. I also made fun of her for even abandoning the children and not wanting any of them. She said I can have all my property, including my 2 children, she doesn't want any. Her mother said that Elle is still young, and she doesn't want to bear the burden of the children. I said, "No problem, I'm happy to have my children with me." This is undoubtedly a relief, but I'm worried about my children. They miss their mother, especially the little one. When I'm in the office, it's hard to bear all the responsibilities alone, but I hope I can get through it. Update to this point, I moved to my father's house with my children. It was a great move. I must say, thank you to everyone's lovely advice, it worked. Living with my father has been good for all of us. My father has the company of my children, and they have their grandfather to play with them. My father has a full-time nurse who is willing to take care of them at an increased salary. Why not? Having someone to take care of my children under my father's supervision, the best deal, right? Seeing my father and my children play and laugh, and having a good time with their grandfather, is a happy feeling. Elle didn't think of this. She wanted to make my life miserable by divorcing me. She thought I couldn't bear all the responsibilities at the same time, taking care of the children, my father's house, and work, but you see, everything is perfect. I definitely have the last laugh. Divorce was the best thing, huh? Update 3, this is sad news, my father passed away last week in his sleep. He went to bed happily and contentedly after playing with my children, and never woke up. The doctor said he died peacefully. The doctor, his nurse, and even his caregiver all said that my father was very happy since I moved in with him, which actually increased his lifespan by so many months. He was already on the verge of giving up before I moved in. Losing your only parent is very sad, but I am glad he was able to spend the last few months of his life happily. My children are also sad to lose him, but my father imparted good values to them. They said that Grandpa used to teach them to accept reality and move on. Life doesn't stop for anyone. Hearing them say this, I feel very proud. They are indeed my strength in desperate times. But there is even more shocking news that came after my father's death. My father's lawyer contacted me and asked me to come to his office to reveal my father's will. I said it was unnecessary. My father had already told me that he had donated all his property to the trust, and I was fine with that. He could continue to deal with the documents and transfer everything to them. I asked if I needed to move out of my father's house because I guessed it was also donated to the charity trust. He laughed and asked me to come over. When I got there, I found that the trust members were already there. The lawyer had also called them. When the lawyer began to read the will, I shed tears. My father actually made me his heir, all his business, his house, his wealth, all mine. I asked the lawyer if this change had happened recently. I thought he made this change after I started taking care of him. The lawyer smiled and said that I have always been his heir, and the will has never changed. I couldn't cry in comfort. My father never abandoned me. Maybe he threatened to abandon me so that I could continue his business and his legacy. I was still crying when my father's lawyer comforted me. I said this makes me feel very painful inside because I have been hurting my father all my life, but he always cared about me. The lawyer said that my father was actually very proud that I did not give up my passion under his pressure, and I was happy to lose my inherited wealth for pursuing my passion. My father was very proud of me. The lawyer said that I am the decision maker of the company, and if I want, I can take back the company from the trust fund and run it myself. I am considering doing so. I have done everything I wanted to do. My father indirectly supported me, and now it's time for me to repay him. I am considering taking it back from the trust fund and expanding it to the level my father hoped for. I went home and told the children about their grandfather's will. He also left a portion of his wealth to the children, after they turn 18. Today we went to his grave with some flowers and spent some time in peace. This is a very emotional phase for me. Update 40, Ants come back after seeing Candy a month later. After my father passed away, I started taking over his business and other community service work. First, I resigned from my job and took over the business. Then I rented out my house because my children and I decided to live in my parents' house. They feel connected to their grandfather in this house. This house has memories of my childhood, so I don't want to leave it either. With this news, I inherited my father's $1 million fortune, and many visitors came to my house, long-lost relatives, friends, and neighbors. But the most surprising visitor was my ex-wife Elle and her parents. They came into the house crying, saying they didn't know my father had passed away, or they would have attended the funeral. Her parents continued to say all the good things about my father. Elle hugged the children and cried, saying how much she missed them. I asked her why she hadn't come to see them in the past 78 months since she missed them so much. She said she had been to our house, but the house was locked. What nonsense! I said, you saw the house was locked, didn't you worry about the children? Didn't you think it was necessary to contact me to see if the children were okay? She didn't answer. Her parents said, let's forget everything that happened in the past. Now that my father is gone, the children will be lonely at home, and they need a mother when I'm working, so we'd better reconcile. I sneered at their suggestion. When the children needed her the most, she left them. Now that the children have gotten used to her absence, I don't want her back in my life. She started crying, and her parents left us. She held my hand, pleading for reconciliation. She said she loves me and misses being with the children. I laughed and said, you know you don't love me, you love the wealth my father left me, and you and your greedy parents just want to take advantage of me at my doorstep. I don't regret insulting her parents with these words because that's who they are. She also called my father greedy and mean during our divorce. I won't let this woman get a penny of my father's hard-earned money. She got angry because I insulted her parents. She said she had been pleading with me until now because she loves me, but now she will take what she deserves. She didn't ask for alimony in the divorce, but now she needs half of my wealth, that is, half of my father's wealth. I told her she could do whatever she wanted. I would ruin her, but I wouldn't give her a penny. She abused me and left. I discussed this possibility with my lawyer. He said her chances are very slim, and the divorce was settled a year before I inherited. Moreover, the children are with me, so she can't get anything. But he also asked me to be careful about letting her spend time with the children. She might manipulate them, make custody claims, and then later use them to demand their maintenance and so on. I am very grateful for his advice, and I will supervise their meetings. I have also spent a lot of time with the children recently, helping them cope with the loss, so they won't run to their mother for emotional support. I have taken over my father's company, which gives me a lot of flexibility to manage my well-being and personal life. I plan to take the children on a vacation to the Bahamas. Yes, why not? It's not about over-consuming my father's wealth. I could have afforded it, but I didn't have time before, between work and taking care of my father. Now that I can, I want to take them out. As for Elle, she hasn't contacted me since their last visit. I think she's busy knocking on every lawyer's office, suing me.